Right. Hello. So during our last lecture, we set up the problem of evil. So this is an argument that Manichees appeal to suggest that there's not one God, right, or that God does not exist, right? So recall that the Manichees think that there are two gods equally powerful, one good and one evil, that are fighting against one another, bickering against one another, right? And so the Christian picture from which Saint Augustine writes is wrong. So this is the kind of argument that would attempt to undermine Saint Augustine's view, at least Saint Augustine's view later in his life after he converts to Catholic Christianity. So, okay, so recall that we address two divine attributes, that is, characteristics that God has. We talked about omnibenevolence and omnipotence. So, if God exists, then there is a being that is both omnipotent and omnibenevolent. Okay, so omnibenevolent, recall, is like fully good, right? All good, not any evil. And omnipotent is like all powerful. Okay, so premise two, an omnipotent being could prevent any evil that it wills to prevent. The idea here is that, look, if God is like super powerful, then God could like prevent any evil, right? He's like powerful enough to where he could prevent any evil he wanted to. Um, he's the one, like nobody's more powerful than him. So why is there any evil? Okay. So if God so desired, God could prevent any evil. Okay. Um, premise three, an omnibenevolent being, an all good being, would prevent any evil it could prevent. Okay. So if God is all good, then that means that God would prevent any evil that God could. Okay. So how could an all good being allow evil in the world, right? Okay. So so we have an all-powerful being could stop any evil. An all-good being would stop any evil. Okay. So premise four, if there is an omnipotent and omnibenevolent being, then there's no evil in the world, right? So an all-powerful being is powerful enough to stop any evil. An all-good being would stop any evil. Therefore, if there's a being that has both of these attributes, well, then there's not going to be any evil in the world. But premise five, there is a whole lot of evil in the world. Clearly so, right? I stubbed my toe. Ow, that hurts. That's a kind of evil, right? You turn on the news, you hear about all the bad things in the world. That's a kind of evil, right? Um, Premise six, therefore, it is not the case that there is an omnipotent and omnibenevolent being, right? So that means that the presence of evil undermines the presence of a being that has both omnipotence and omnibenevolence. Therefore, the conclusion is that God doesn't exist. So recall that the first premise says that if God exists, then God is such that he is omnibenevolent and omnipotent. We said that is not the case, that there is an omnipotent and omnibenevolent being. So it follows then that God doesn't exist. So this is an argument from evil that is purported to show that God does not exist. Now, in our next lecture, we're going to look at some responses to this argument that would follow in line with St. Augustine's account of evil. So, so think about this section as like as a setup and a response to this like interesting philosophical and theological question about the problem of evil.